Hello and thank you for coming to check this out. I have this sweep animation working here, which is a very common feature in titles. You see it almost everywhere, in one form or another, either as the main element or as supporting elements. Okay, you can see that this is a line. This is a line object, it's not a shape. And you can see that it is animated by keyframing the first and last point offset. Okay, so thinking ahead, I'll tell you that it's possible to completely automate a line animation to adjust to the area of text. That's something we're going to look at later on. We still have more basics to cover for the time being. But it is a good time to start talking about the difference between a line object and a shape object. So when you're planning your titles, you can think ahead and think about what is the best thing to do. Okay, so the big difference is if we come to geometry, you can see here that a line has no width and no height to link to the text. A line does have a width parameter here, and it does have scale parameters, but as we have seen before, linking scale to text, you're going to get mixed results. Sometimes it's workable, sometimes it isn't, and it can often produce skewing and distortion in your animation. Okay, so what we want to do is start looking at how to create sweeps, how to create them so that they are auto-adjustable to the text, and I'm going to keep things as simple as possible, so I'm going to go through this in preset stages rather than purely step by step, because we're going to be using the align to behavior, which is going to slow down my system, and that's going to make things really boring for you to watch. So if you have covered guides 1 to 7, what we're going to do will make more sense to you. But if not, follow along. If you get lost, go and watch guides 1 to 7 and then come back. Things will probably be easier to understand. Okay, so let's get things started. Okay, so for step 1, I have set up the same mechanism that we did in the previous guide, Automatic Titles Part 7. So this is the mechanism using two competing X position links that will drive an animation of this line here between either end of the rectangle shape. And like we saw in the previous guide, if we change the width, the path of that linked object is going to automatically adjust. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add a big shape. So I'm going to just grab the rectangle and draw something really large in here. I have show full view area turned on so I can see outside the canvas when I scale things down. Okay, let's scale things back up. Okay, so the next step, I am going to call this my banner, and I'm going to add an align to behavior. I'm not going to use the rectangle as the source. I'm going to use this shape, this line. I've called it the banner driver. And I'm going to link the right side of my banner to the center of the driver. So now the driver will pull this shape in according to its path set by the links. Okay, so now for step 2. Right, for step 2, you see I've made some changes. So I've added the text. I have the frame shape aligned to the text and linked to the text for size. So that is our basic auto-sizing method. I put the banner shape in its own group here, banner, and I put the driver that's pulling this shape around into its own group as well. So this is where we're at. And so now if I'm not going to do it because it's align 2 is going to slow my system right down. I've got 2 in the project now. But we know already that now if we change the text, more lines, more text, make it longer, taller, this shape will be pulled accordingly from left to right, right to left. And remember, we made this shape really tall, and so changes in height are going to fit this shape in. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. The next step is this. We're going to grab the banner shape, this white shape here. Actually, I should change the color of this shape now. There's that system lag that I'm talking about. Come on. Okay, I'll change the shape color to the color I want for my banner and turn off the driver visibility. Right, now I'm going to add an image mask to the banner, and the source of the image mask is the frame shape. Okay, so we're using the auto-sizing frame as the image mask source for this. And this is the result. Okay, so let's go ahead and do step 3. For step 3, I've made a few more changes. I've duplicated the banner driver and I've called it the mask driver. I've duplicated the banner, the big blue shape, and I've called that mask, and I've put that mask into its own group here, mask. Now the mask is now aligned to the mask driver, and the animations for the mask driver have been reset. So now the mask driver will start to pull the mask in just 2 frames before the banner finishes its run. So it's last in, but first out. I think you can see this is set up for the next step already. So if I turn back on the banner mask, I have the align to behavior on the text turned off for now. Let's now add another mask to the banner. So here's the first mask. I'm going to call that clip. I'm going to duplicate that mask and call this sweep. And I'm going to add the mask as the source and set that to subtract. Okay, so for step 4, let's animate the text. I just added a sequence in and a sequence out to animate the text. And I've made sure I've trimmed the text to not start before the sequence in and to finish right on the sequence out so that we don't see it reappearing again. So this is the basic setup. There's lots of things you can do from here. And this is all very rough. I haven't really paid attention to timing, that kind of thing. So what we can do from here is add a mask to the titles group, and we're going to use the same mask that is creating the sweep for us. So I'm going to drag in mask as the source. And we know that if I was to turn a line 2 back on, this is going to automatically update to any changes we make in the text for length and for height. So remember, we made the banner shape really tall. So generally make it at least as long and as tall as your project file itself. So in this case 1920 by 1080 or even more. Because as that clipping mask gets taller and taller with the text, or longer and longer with the text, eventually you could run out of room. Which is something that animating with lines instead solves, and we're going to get to that later on. Okay, so look, we've used the link-to-link method to automate a sweeping banner title. It's very basic, but I think you understand there's a lot you can do from here to make it look so much better. Let's go another step further with the masks. So let's grab the banner group and drag the text in as a mask source and choose subtract. And turn the text back on. So we've added an extra layer of style to it already. Alright, what we're going to do next is look at the things you can publish from here to make the title more adaptable for the user in Final Cut. I went ahead and published the color and opacity for the banner shape. And so let's look at the other important things to publish to make it more usable. So we know that I've just turned off the line 2 again, but we know that the size of the shape is determined by the size link to the text. And that's going to be the default setting. So if we want to give the user of the template the option to create more space between the text and the edges of the shape, then we want to come here to the size link, and we're going to publish the X offset and the Y offset. And I'll call this adjust width and adjust height. So the other important parameter to publish is the start position for the sequence text and the sequence out. This parameter here. So then the editor has some control over where the text animates in from. We could do it independently, but what I'm going to do is link them so that there's just the one. So let's grab sequence out, come to the parameter, choose link, drag in the text as the source and choose behaviors, sequence in, controls, no, format position X. And now I'll grab the sequence in parameter here and publish that. And I'm just going to call that, you could call it text offset, I'm going to call it origin. Okay, let's jump over to Final Cut and see how it works out. Right, so here's our title. So let's check on the auto adjustability. Let's add more text to make it longer. More lines. Okay, so you can see how, right, I left the sequence text set at character, and another thing we should have done is published the unit size for line or word. But you can see that utility of publishing the origin now. I can set that to a greater value so that text isn't caught waiting to come in. Okay, so our title will auto adjust for size just fine. Let's check on the adjust height. And width we're not really going to be able to have a good look at. Oh no, if we come to the start we can see. Right, and if I adjusted the width I'd want to use that offset again. Even a touch more, not the height, the width. Okay, that's that for this guide. Hey, I hope that was really useful for you. So what we're going to be doing about 2 guides away, I think we're going to start to look at how to make auto-adjusting titles using line paths instead, which involves point tracking. But that is a good thing to do in some situations and not a good thing to do in other situations. So it's really good to know that you have these options as well when point tracking on a line isn't available. Okay, thanks for watching.